Does the story always have to get bigger as the series goes on? My name is Gina. I'm an author, editor, publishing professional. I help you make your writing better. Comment specifically says you can see these issues pop up with the MCU. The longer the series goes on, the bigger the antagonist has to get. And that is sort of the conventional wisdom when you're working with a big series. But when you have something as long and as big as the MCU has been around, and comic books in general, you can't just keep getting bigger. And while the MCU, in my personal opinion, has gone off the rails in recent years, I really enjoyed those first few phases. Everything up through Endgame and even like Black Widow and the first Spider Man movie after Endgame, I really enjoyed those. And so I think there are a lot of good storytelling techniques that you can take from those. And one in particular speaks to this specific question. After Age of Ultron, in which we had been leveling up the bad guys over and over again, like every single antagonist got a little bit bigger and a little bit more dangerous, and the stakes got a little bit higher for everybody involved. But then we get to Ultron, and this is the second Avengers movie, the second ensemble movie, and it is just huge, right? Like we have a city being picked up off of the earth and dropped, and it's going to be a cataclysmic extinction level event, and you don't get a lot bigger than that. And yes, we had already teased Thanos that this was going to be coming in the future, and but we weren't ready to play that hand just yet. It wasn't going to be Thanos and like universal destruction just yet. But they weren't going to just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They knew that they had to release that tension a little bit, that they couldn't just keep escalating because it spirals out of control and becomes not super interesting for a lot of your audience. Right after Ultron came out, Ant-Man came out, but those actually came out so close together that I don't think of that as being like a sequel. I kind of think of that as like happening kind of at the same time over on this other part of the world, right? But the next movie, like in the saga, was the Civil War movie. And that one often feels like Avengers 3, right? Like it has so many of them involved, and we have that big airport scene. But this movie is fundamentally about two men, two friends disagreeing about politics. There isn't a big bad antagonist the same way that we've been used to it. Yeah, we meet some more like villainous characters, but it's not the same. We don't have, a cataclysmic event wiping life off of Earth. We have two friends who disagree about a political issue, and they both have a point. And so, not only is this movie fundamentally about a pair of friends disagreeing about politics, but at the end of the movie, they don't resolve that conflict. They have scaled this story way back. They have made the big and universal personal. They have made it intimate. They have made it about these two friends and ruining a friendship and ruining these ties in this community that they had built together. And they didn't resolve it. They go their separate ways at the end of that movie, not having fixed the problem. We are simply moving on to the next stage of the problem, and we now have become an antagonist to someone that we were a protagonist to a minute ago, right? Like dynamics have shifted, but fundamentally, the movie has scaled way, way back from what we were expecting. And so, does your antagonist always need to keep getting bigger? No. Now, the movie did not scale everything back and make it just two dudes arguing in a conference room, which is what probably would have happened if like real people were arguing about politics in this way. They still had the huge airport hangar fight. They still had the big like Bucky, Cap, and Iron Man fight, right? Like they still had these big set pieces. They still had the spectacle that went with it, but it was a smaller, more intimate, more personal story.